You've probably already heard that the circle of fifths is an incredibly useful tool for learning and memorizing a wide range of relationships in music. Even beginning musicians can make great use of it as a logically displayed chart of the keys and key signatures. As you learn more about chord progression, how harmonies tend to move from one to the next in a piece of music, you'll really see the profound advantages of learning the circle and using the implications. Now, usually when the circle is taught in textbooks, it is shown as a circle of ascending perfect fifths. In this video, I will show you why it is much more helpful to learn a different way, as a series of descending fifth intervals. The reason is because the interval of the fifth descending is a much more common means of progression than a fifth ascending, and it makes much more sense to learn the circle like this right from the start. Let's go ahead and see where the circle of fifths comes from. Now, it is possible to relate all the keys to each other by overlapping them. First, consider that a major scale can be divided into two sections, comprised of 4 notes. Four-note segments like this are called tetrachords. Now, laid out and labeled in this way, the major scale takes on a very symmetric appearance, built with 2 tetrachords of the exact same structure, major second, minor second, and separated by a major second. It stands to reason that the second tetrachord, G, A, B, C, although the second half of the C major scale here could just as easily comprise the first half of the G major scale. Now that the potential overlapping nature of the major scales is apparent, the entire set of sharp scales can be constructed as overlapping pairs of similarly structured tetrachords. Now, interestingly, this chart can continue into the flat keys, but a little sleight of hand with enharmonics will be necessary. We'll start with a B major scale here, but spell it enharmonically as C flat major, and place it in the bass clef. From there, we can continue with the pattern all the way until it reconnects back to the C major scale. So, the idea of starting with C major, passing through all the interconnected keys, and then arriving back at C major reveals a circular nature of the system of overlapping keys. And for this reason, we can construct a circle of fifths. That is, a chart that lays out these key relationships. It's called a circle of fifths because moving from one key to the next requires moving up 5 letters of the musical alphabet. Now, actually, it is just as logical and even better to start with the last key of the sequence, the C major, and move down by 5 notes to the next key. In other words, start with C major, move to F major, B flat major, etc. There are many advantages to constructing the circle of fifths downward this way. That is, as a descending circle of fifths, as harmonic progression tends to move in descending fifths. Now, the circle of fifths is very useful as a visual aid for writing and recognizing the keys. Notice that B flat is at 2 o'clock with 2 flats, and E flat is at 3 o'clock with 3 flats. Notice that the order of the flat placement is on the left side of the circle in the names of the keys: battle, ends, end, down, goes, Charles's father. That's a little saying some people use for the order of the flats. Now, the key signatures at the bottom of the circle are called enharmonic keys because the pitches for those pairs of keys sound identical, but they can be written as either flats or sharps. That's the B flat and the C flat, the F sharp and the G flat, and the C sharp and the D flat. Now, to memorize and draw the entire circle, follow these steps. Number 1, draw a circle. Number 2, write the 3 easy keys across the top: G, C, F. Back in math class, you may have memorized the saying greatest common factor. That could help. Number 3, spell the word bead, B-E-A-D, clockwise on the left side. Next, spell the word bead, B-E-A-D, clockwise on the right side, but with flats: B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. Then put an F sharp at the bottom. And finally, fill in the 3 enharmonic keys at the very bottom. Here's another chart of the circle of fifths descending. it's a little bit more complete. As you can see, each of the key signatures are shown in the G clef and also in the F clef. Also notice the labels. For each key, there is the major key and its relative minor, because for every key signature, there is a major and a minor key that can correspond. Now you can always get the minor key by just counting down 3 half steps from the major key, but you can also find the relative minor on the circle of fifths by just going back 3 degrees on the circle. So for example, the C major going back 3 on the circle gets you to A minor, and F going back 3 gets you to D minor. Just be a little bit careful because some of the enharmonics might be a little bit off, and just make sure that the answer that you choose makes sense. For example, if you go back 3 from A major, you get to G flat, but you would really have to call that F sharp minor because the key signature has an F sharp and not a G flat. Another useful function of the circle of fifths is that it can help to identify the likely keys where a piece of music might modulate. Now, modulation is a shift in the tonal center of a piece of music from one key to another key. Modulations can move between any 2 keys, but the majority of modulations found in Baroque and classical music happen between closely related keys. A closely related key is one that either has the same key signature or one that differs by only 1 accidental, and it's easy to discover these on the circle of fifths. Just choose a first key on the circle, then move 1 place forward and 1 place back. Make sure to include the relative minors. For example, the closely related keys to B flat major are G minor, of course its relative minor, F major and D minor, and then E flat major and C minor, as shown on the circle of fifths here. Notice these are all adjacent keys. Here's another example. Let's say your first key were F sharp minor. Then the closely related keys would be A major, D major, B minor, E major, and C sharp minor. All keys that are either the same or differ by 1 accidental, and they're all adjacent keys on the circle of fifths. Now, at the beginning of this video, I promised you that I would tell you why it's important that you learn the circle of fifths as descending fifths. And that, of course, has to do with chord progression. The topic of chord progression is a rather vast topic that you could spend lots of years studying, and I'm not going to try to cover all of that in this short video. But I'm just going to try to give you a few items that I think you'll find quite helpful, and you'll see why learning the circle of fifths as descending fifths will be much more useful for you. The most common and basic chords in music are the 1, 4, and 5 chords, built on the 1st, 4th, and 5th notes of the major scale. They're often referred to as the primary chords. In the key of C, write a C scale. Then build triads above the first note to build the 1 chord, or C chord in this key, above the 4th note to build the 4 chord, or F chord in this key, and then above the 5th note to build the 5 chord, or G chord. It is quite common that this 5 chord will extend a little higher with the addition of the interval of the 7th, and we can call this 5-7, or G7 in this key. Now make sure to check out the video on dominant 7 chords for more information on this. So listen to this short excerpt of Mozart's Piano Sonata in C. The first few measures include only these primary chords, C, F, and G7. You can easily find the primary chords of any key by locating the key on the circle of fifths and then locating the chords to the right and to the left. Here they are in the key of C, the 1, 4, and 5. And here they are in the key of E flat, the 1, the E flat, the 4, the A flat, and the 5, the B flat. In the Mozart piece, you can see that the 5 chord always seems to return to the 1 chord. A good example of harmony moving by a descending fifth. Look at the circle to see this relationship of 5 going to 1, G7 to C in the key of C. You can easily see this 5-7 to 1 relationship in any key on the circle of fifths. Here it is in the key of B flat. And here it is in the key of E. There are many types of music that are based upon only primary chords. Listen to this example of the blues in the key of C. It's another good example that uses only variations of the 1, 4, and 5 chords. Now, we can expand our set of chords by noticing that the 2 chord, the D minor in the key of C, is very similar to the 4 chord, F, especially if you build the 2 chord up to the 7th. We'll call this D minor 7 in this key. If you locate these chords on the circle, you see that D goes to G and G goes to C in a descending 5th progression. And this is referred to as the 2-5-1 progression. Is extremely popular in jazz music, and also in pop and classical music. Here it is in the Mozart Sonata. Notice the notes D, F, A, C, the D minor 7, 2 chord, going to G, B, D, F, the G7, 5-7 chord, and finally to C major, the 1 chord. You can very easily find the 2-5-1 progression in any key on the circle by backing up 2 places counterclockwise from the key and then proceeding clockwise. Here's a 2-5-1 in the key of B flat. Now make sure you use the correct chord qualities that will fit the key. C minor 7, F7, B flat. And here it is in the key of D. E minor 7, A7, D. Let's extend a bit further by adding the 6th chord, A minor 7, in the key of C. If we plot this out on the circle of fifths, we get the progression A minor 7, D minor 7, G7, C. It's a 6-2-5-1 progression. I'm sure that you've heard this sound in many songs. You can even play with the chord qualities here, changing some of the minor chords into dominant 7 chords for variety. One more extension of the circle gives us the E minor 7 chord, so that we can build a 3-6-2-5-1 progression. Here it is in the key of C. E minor 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7, C. We call a progression like this, that follows the circle so closely, a sequence. Here's the same sequence in a more difficult key, G flat. It goes B flat minor 7, E flat minor 7, A flat minor 7, D flat 7, G flat. If you want to include all the chords in the key, first complete the chord chart. We'll add 7ths to the 1 and 4 chords, and then fill in the 7 chord, which is half diminished in quality. A complete discussion on chord qualities is beyond the scope of this video, so make sure to check out the videos on diatonic chords within the major and minor keys. Now, start with a 1 chord, and then move to the 4 chord. Then jump back to the 7 chord. From here, trace your way back to 1. 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. This progression uses all the chords. C major 7, F major 7, B half diminished 7, E minor 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7, and finally C major 7. With a slight alteration of the chord qualities and a different starting point, you can do this in a minor key. Here it is in A minor, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, F major 7, B half diminished 7, E7, and then A minor. Of course, not all progressions follow the circle like this, but a great many of them do, at least in part. And we've just cracked the surface here. So there you have it, the circle of fifths descending. And you've got a few ideas for progression. So go ahead and take those ideas and learn your circle of fifths the right way, that is, in descending fifths, and have some fun.